What's going on, y'all? KM Best here with a deck I think might be one of the absolute best in the game right now. Let's get started. This is the list. It is a Fenris Wolf mid-range deck, but I don't want you to look at this and take away that Fenris Wolf is the incredible reason why this works, because it does not need to be a Fenris Wolf mid-range deck. What it is, fundamentally, is an Anti-Venom Luke Cage mid-range deck. And this combo has been subsidizing mid-range decks for an extended period of time now, but I think this deck really gets at the core of what makes it so powerful, and that core is very strong 2 and 3 drops to go along with Anti-Venom consistently, meaning that it is almost always giving you an extra card to play on turn 6. The way this works is basically the higher impact your 2s and 3s are, the more you're going to be able to get out of them on the final turn of the game. You know how Silver Surfer decks sometimes play Sarah in order to play 3 drops on the final turn of the game because that is such a multiplier on their force? That is effectively what we're doing. Most of the time, getting to play that extra card ends up being extremely relevant. Of course, we have Luke Cage to get rid of the downside as well. This is a little bit more small ball than your typical Anti-Venom Luke Cage mid-range deck, but it still has plenty of beef, plenty of power, and plenty of ability to do a bunch of damage to your opponent's game plan. The package here that I really enjoy has been Fenris Wolf and Gladiator, alongside Shang-Chi. This is a very powerful thing to be doing right now, but it is far from required for what the deck actually is. I know that Butt, for example, climbed a lot on this deck, playing no Fenris and no Legion, and instead playing Invisible Woman and Sage. The point here is that this deck is basically the modern day version of Noki. For those who remember that deck, it was just a classic Loki-less Loki mid-range deck that was looking to play as efficient of a game as possible with cheap cards that did a lot and carried a lot of weight. That is effectively what this deck is trying to do. It is just going to beat you on a card quality for card quality basis because every card in here is doing something very powerful. Now, to talk a little bit about the 3 drops, I realize people are going to be surprised to see a Baron Zemo in here. And that may not be the least surprising thing that this deck actually does, but I do think that it makes a lot of just baseline sense. This is a 3/5 with notable upside. It actually is that simple. There's unique stuff you can do with Baron Zemo in terms of like dealing with opposing agent or anti-venoms, like that's cool. But mostly what Baron Zemo is doing is pretty simply just playing a card that is a 3/5, and it's usually going to get you something pretty good. And this is what I mean when I say the deck attacks on a card quality axis. Baron Zemo is probably the worst card in this deck. Everything else is punching very far above its weight, and it's usually a 3/7, a 3/8, maybe bigger, maybe even bigger than that. In addition, on the late turns of the game, Baron Zemo can become a very monstrous threat. Now, the real curve that you're going to want to keep an eye out for here is Fenris Wolf Gladiator. That's a very powerful, very overstated early game curve. Gladiator, of course, being a 3/8, and Fenris Wolf being a 2+ whatever it is that Gladiator gets. That means that this deck is able to, in effect, be a dominant deck in terms of point output without investing heavily in high impact swing cards like Magneto and Alioth that are seen in a lot of the other decks like this, or in cards that are countered by your opponent's Luke Cage, like Ajax and Man-Thing, that are seen in the rest of the decks like this. In fact, I would go so far as to say this is my favorite Anti-Venom Luke Cage deck that I have played in the entirety of the time the combo has existed. This deck has become streamlined in a way that I consider very useful, and I would say that to me, this is the baseline mid-range deck of this metagame. It does everything you want a mid-range deck to do. Everything is good in terms of power and stats, and you get free high rolls that allow you to do things that are incredibly powerful. On top of those, you very rarely clunk, and even in games where you don't play anything until turn 3, you are very liable to still just win those. This is strong, it does powerful things, and I think on a baseline level, being a good curve deck with the ability to have a little energy cheat in there has been a good recipe for so many decks in Marvel Snap. Hydra Bob is a 1/5, and I gotta say, I kind of feel like he probably shouldn't exist. This card is being played here exclusively for the purposes of being a 1/5. That's really all he's doing. Sometimes you'll be able to get some extra value out of getting him into a location that you otherwise will not be able to get to, but mostly he is a 1/5, and that's kind of all he's trying to be. In addition, if you do not have Hydra Bob, which I realize there are many people who do not, I believe the replacement is Killmonger, because that way you would have absolutely no 1-drops that can get hit by your own Killmonger. Killmonger punches pretty far above his weight right now because people are still playing a decent amount of Thanos and a decent amount of this guy. And you can, of course, use him as a smaller version of Gladiator, getting back something off the Fenris Wolf rather than nothing. Shadow King is a little bit worse than he has been in decks like this. There is something to be said for maybe trying to get rid of this card, getting a Kate Bishop in there. I can see that. That said, he is still so cheap, and on card quality, it's very hard to beat a 2-drop that can win a lane on his own. This is a very strong card that still has a lot of applicability in this metagame, even though it is notably less than it has been in previous metas, and he is, of course, 1 point smaller. I can see, because we are running both this and US Agent, we don't have a lot of 2-drops to actually curve out with. I can see trying to replace one with a curve 2 and see how that goes, and I do think it probably would be Shadow King, but I am loath to make that replacement myself. Fenris Wolf has just been flat out good in this deck. It's just very good to play with Gladiator and Shang-Chi, and your worst case scenario is this is the Shocker, which is not good, but it's also not the worst thing on earth. This is a powerful points package that I have really enjoyed. The ability that this deck has to be a deck that has all these cheap cards that can scale upwards is really strong. Hitting something off of Gladiator and knowing you're going to be able to get it back and do some real damage with it is really good. You also have to be a little bit conscious of board space. Fenris Wolf needs an extra board spot to work. Baron Zemo needs an extra board spot to work. That is something that you're going to have to think about in this deck. If you don't have Fenris Wolf, you absolutely can make the budget replacement here. As I said, but the person who originally put this deck together was playing it without Fenris Wolf and without Legion. I've enjoyed the more straightforward curve-out version of this, but if you don't have Fenris Wolf, Invisible Woman for this and Sage for Legion are excellent options. US Agent is just an immensely powerful card. It often plays for 211, and when we talk about using small cards that play above their rate, we talked about this with Shadow King, US Agent very often is that as well. You are also a Luke Cage deck, so you're a little bit immunized from the downside, but a lot of the cards in this deck are pretty cheap anyway. You don't have a lot of targets for this guy to hit on your side, and he's just really damn strong. He is, I sort of think of him as like the signpost card of this deck, where this is what you are trying to do, is just play a 2-drop that plays for way above rate. That's the ethos of this deck, and this is the card that defines that to me. Luke Cage is one of the strongest cards in the game right now, being a proactive combo with Anti-Venom that allows you to have a card that you get for free. This is sort of like if Pixie Mobius was on cards that had really good stats. Luke Cage, and also I guess if Pixie Mobius was more relevant to the board too. It's basically, what I'm trying to say here is Luke Cage Anti-Venom is Pixie Mobius if it was good. Or maybe Pixie Mobius if it was better. This is the better version of Pixie Mobius. It's just two very good already cards that make each other much stronger when they're played together. This is one of the strongest combinations in Marvel Snap right now, and probably the linchpin of a lot of mid-range decks, of which this is my current favorite. When you play a deck like this, you kind of need a one-size-fits-all answer to stuff that you're not covered, right? Like, you have a surprising amount of cover against a surprising amount of things. That is true. But like, if your opponent plays an armor, you need a way to get rid of that. If your opponent plays a Madam Web, you need a way to get rid of that. And like, that kind of stuff is what Red Guardian is here to do. Notably, also, there's been a pretty big uptick in discard recently. He gets rid of Dracula real nicely. This is a card that's very good to have right now, especially as people are picking up discard a little bit more. A lot of good hits for this guy, and he covers a lot of the things that you otherwise can't cover. Because you are a Shadow King deck, you are a Shang-Chi deck, you can cover a lot of big stuff. You can even cover Iron Man decks because you are a US Agent deck. But this guy specifically provides you a lot of unique situations that you would otherwise be in trouble in. He gets you out of them. Baron Zemo is stats. This is a stats card that plays pretty well the later you play him. Part of why Butt was playing Invisible Woman was because you could actually just like put this guy under an Invisible Woman and make sure he's hitting on the later turns of the game, which means that he's usually going to get something much, much bigger. Like, that's a really powerful thing to do. And I'm glad that Baron Zemo is finally seeing like some daylight outside of mill decks. This deck reminds me of a mill deck, except instead of playing all the bad mill cards, it's playing good cards. And I think that is a testament to how far mill decks have come in terms of the tools they have access to. But it still means that we can probably do better than mill in terms of what our primary strategy is. And playing efficient stats is really all we're trying to do. Baron Zemo is just efficient enough to fit in here. He does just enough that this deck is able to be extremely strong with him. Gladiator's a 3/8 that puts stuff in their destroy pile for your Fenris Wolf to bring back. Probably, maybe not the best card in the deck, but probably the one that is the most definingly good here. For the record, I think he's also totally fine to play without Fenris Wolf in the deck. I know Butt was playing it, again, with no Fenris Wolf, with Invisible Woman and Sage instead, and the ethos remained the same. This is just a 3/8 that you play that is very large. If you're looking for a replacement, I think most replacements are probably harder to find than him, like Copycat, for example. Shang-Chi is Shang-Chi, and even though people are definitely playing around this guy in really strong ways right now, he's still damn good, and he's even better when you can double his effect by Fenris Wolfing. There really isn't much else to say about this guy. When he's good, he's the best card in the game. When you have two of him effectively because of Fenris Wolf, he's even better. Malekith's deck thinning is actually quite important to this deck. Part of the thing that Malekith has been doing in Anti-Venom decks is being a big guy that makes your Anti-Venom less likely to hit something super small. Just getting something small out of the deck is good. It's what you're interested in doing. But mostly, this is also just a card that plays for like 12 stats a lot of the time. This will pull a Baron Zemo. This will pull a Gladiator. And it will just play very, 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 very large. A lot of the time, that's really all you need this guy to do. A 4 that is large, that gets your deck a little bit more set up, such that your Anti-Venom, which you can play on turn 5 with a Hydra Bob, is very, very, very effective. This card's just unbelievably strong. It is a card that around which the best decks in the game are built right now. I consider this one of them. I'm also a pretty big fan of the Ronin one, which you can see in my last tier list. I think those are the best versions of Anti-Venom right now, and I think that phrasing is important because what we're talking about is optimizing Anti-Venom loot cage. That is the thing that people are building around. That is the thing that people are going to try to find the best shell for. This is the card that is defining that. And this card is overwhelmingly powerful. At 4/7, it is just big with an incredible upside that effectively gets even more upsidey when you have Luke Cage. It is as if Pixie Mobius was on a 3/3 and a 4/7. Like that is what it's like. It's just like, it's also like the upside is more guaranteed too, because you're not really drawing that card. Like, you're going to get it. And even though if you don't have Luke Cage, that can be worse, a lot of your cards have effects, which you are then able to take advantage of. And so even when this is doing nothing other than its own effect, it's cheating pretty damn hard at a very efficient body at 4/7. Legion is a Revis addition to this deck. I tend to enjoy playing just like one beefy scam card in decks like this. And Legion is the beefy scam card of choice here. Far from required. Far from required. But sometimes you just have the ability to, in a deck like this that has so much efficient stats, play a card that's just like, oh, it's kind of a big guy, but mostly what we're doing here is just robbing you of some cubes. Legion is excellent at that right now. I've played a decent amount of Magic decks. Locations are always a factor for your opponents, more than they are for you, honestly, a lot of the time. And this is a powerful way of reflecting that impact onto your opponents. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that look at Anti-Venom, just like so far as how to build around the deck. And I think that this is one of the strongest decks in the game right now. It has felt amazing for me. It's exactly the kind of deck I like to play. If you've watched me for a long time, you understand what that means. And I think you'll know whether this is a good fit for you. I think this deck is unbelievably powerful right now and very, very underrated. And I think more people should be playing it, probably to the detriment of my own rank. As always, I've been KM Best. I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Please do stick around. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. It's probably going to take some time for me to feel 100% better. But that is what it is. Improvement is improvement. Yeah. It sure is. Fenris down now, I think. Okay, they're skipping 2 turns. What's going on here? What are you? What are you? Thanks for the late night stream, of course. Your discard. And you've discarded a blade that I can bring back if I want, I suppose. I don't think it feels like a scummy mobile game. That's not what I would say. Surely they leave. Yep. Good evening, Saggy sir. Heart pounding. Red Guardian is pretty decent. We can't complain about that. Oh, season mission. Sure, yeah. Season track, discard 10. That's a good point. Bro. I want priority here really badly, actually. So they decided to lose that. Why did they decide to lose that? I'm imagining they have Magneto, but I don't think it matters. Yeah, I can't think of anything that mattered less than that. Oh, it's easy to guess the range. Ultimately, there are a lot of decks for which the range comes down to 2 different 6-drops, and you have to choose one to play around. And I find that way more annoying than any, like, Arishem anything, honestly. Just significantly more of a pain in the dick. This is, they have Scream? I think I'm still playing. I have Luke Cage in my deck. I refuse to believe that people in the anti-Archman crowd know their ranges in every other matchup and just lose to RNG. That, it is a little unbelievable, yes. Oh, come on. Wait. That means it dies now, which means I get the Fenris. Oh, no, I still lose. No, I win. All right. All calculated. 100% of that was 100% calculated the entire way. I just knew. What just happened is like losing a random Arishem. Unironically, yes. Thanos gamer. When are you gonna start a Marvel Snap League? I've wanted to for a while, honestly. I just don't really think it's like the kind of thing that I can commit to 100%. Doesn't really seem like something that will make money. Run some risks there. Okay, so what I don't like is this. Wait, I didn't get rid of it in time? Oh, shit. I can retreat. So they go minus 16. I go minus 8. This plays for 11. 14, 23, 11. Sure, fuck it. We did it. That would possibly make that happen. I honestly, I've never been able to figure it out. Absolutely 0% of the time. Dehydrated Vampire, thank you for the tier 1. Ow. I'll stick around, but I don't like it. We're not ever winning that lane. I think that is ultimately my play. It was gonna be my play. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll take it. All right. I feel weirded out that they ended up going with the Morb over here. If you failed to do that, that's not my fault. Hardly my fault if you failed to one bang. Sag, I need to get better RNG tips. Skill? Try harder? I don't know. Ow. I did one bang Malekith though. I mean, that's can't complain about that. It's a good rip. Thank you. Are locations before Bob or after Bob? Before? Well, then this seems kind of sick. Oh my god, Negasonic? I mean, I guess they got kind of shittered regardless. But we had the Legion to dodge the Shang and everything. Oh my god, the levels to what just happened there. What a clown show. It is. So you're gonna need to give me a more specific time. But yeah, absolutely. You remember featuring Reverse Ghost Rider Ken Eric? I do. You're talking about Fenris now? You're taking credit for Fenris? Bro, I'm taking credit for Fenris. I invented this card, actually. I don't know if you know this. I invented Fenris Wolf. I like, duh. It was me. It was me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin. You're in the chat. I mean, I'll give you no. I feel like I would like 69% credit. That's how I. Just one man's opinion, but that seems like the right number to me. Your opponent has Bussin' Wolf? Yeah, but it's not inked out, so you can actually tell they're marshmallows. Which sucks, frankly. But he do be bussin'. A little bit of bussin' happening. I don't know if they wanted that. Just lost out on a hood because of Sacred Timeline. Oh boy. Cold game. It's a cold world out there. Yeah, they don't know the art meta. 100%. Fucking A. That was my night. I think it's been pretty good. Luckily, I can do math here. And the math was basically saying beat 10 everywhere if you can. Ryan's so good. I'm making even 14 since it's 2 weeks. What the fuck, Ryan? Bro. Ah, I regret that. Can't remember. Do you like Deadpool's Diner? It's okay. That's as far as my take goes. No. Jesus. We're getting milled. Bro. Okay, so what did they get back? Fenris Wolf or a Gladiator at 0? Gladiator at 0 is an insanely funny thing to get back. Like, just objectively hysterical. What's up, Sori? You own King Aether yet? Nah. Is there a good replacement for Anti-Venom in this deck, or is he a must? He's a must. That dude's a monster. Huh. Okay, so which card did they get? I keep my Luke Cage. I see. They now get my 0-cost Gladiator. Do I snap this out? Gladiator. Okay, we somehow got away with this. Just the worst shit of all time.